Welcome to Cross-Examined, a podcast by the Law Institute of Victoria.
Welcome to Cross-Examined. I'm Karen Finch. Today we're exploring how artificial intelligence and generative AI are transforming courts and legal systems across Southeast Asia and the broader Asia-Pacific region. To explore this, we're speaking with Eric Chin, who leads the Legal Generative AI initiative as the Asia-Pacific Director at the New Law Practice at PwC. Eric is an expert in legal innovation, legal process digitisation and generative AI solutions for law firms and in-house legal teams. Eric is also a founding board member of the ASEAN Legal Tech Association and co-founder of Legal Hackers Melbourne. Eric, welcome to Cross-Examined. Thank you so much, Karen. Pleasure to be here with you. We are very excited to have you here, Eric. So let's jump in. Can you tell us a bit about the research you've conducted on the state of AI adoption in courts across the Asia-Pac region, and what were some of your key findings?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much again for the opportunity to share our research. We've been working with the legal industry to implement generative AI solutions for both law firms and legal departments across the Asia-Pacific region. Recently, we were invited to two panel discussions, one by the Asia-Pacific Institute of Experts, another by the NUS Center for International Law. Both are really interested in the state of AI and generative AI adoption in the courts across the Asia-Pacific region. So we were really excited to do the research and to speak to people on the ground. And that's why we crossed paths with you to hear more about what was happening in Australia. So we were really interested in exploring the state of AI and Gen AI adoption in the courts in the region. And here's a quick summary of what we found. Firstly, majority of the jurisdictions are actively implementing AI solutions, and they're at different phases of their journey, which we'll explore later on in the session. Secondly, you have jurisdictions that have also indicated their support for generative AI and the use of AI in court proceedings. We also do see there are different use cases that are being tested across the region, and that crosses things like research and search, as well as drafting, summarizing, and judgment support. We have also seen public-facing chatbots, as well as decision support and case allocation AI solutions being tested.
So, Eric, I think our listeners are probably familiar with the term AI, unless they've been living under a rock. And you've mentioned there a few user cases, but what are the few different technologies that are being called AI?
That's a really good question. If I take a step back, when we talk about AI in legal tech, we can trace this back to the first wave of AI coming into the market about 10 to 15 years ago, when we saw, for example, machine learning AI entering the market with helping with supervised machine learning and predictive analytics that really underpin the e-discovery and contract due diligence solutions. Then we have natural language processing AI that classified unstructured text for e-discovery and also extracted information for contract drafting and review. We also had expert systems that map knowledge-driven and case-based reasoning solutions in the market. That first wave of AI also gave birth to the Australian Legal Technology Association. And of course, Karen, you were the president at ALTA. Today, when we talk about AI, we're really referring to generative AI solutions. And these are pre-trained large language models that really generate text and understand text. For the legal industry, what we've seen is that legal generative AI solutions basically take the fine-tuned large language model and train it on top with legal data sets. And when you think about legal data sets, we're really talking about contracts, legal memos, textbooks, legislation, case law, and so on. The reason this is important is because when you think about the work that we do in the legal industry, we're working in contracts, we're working in legal memos, and each word is precisely phrased. And this is where legal fine-tuned large language models or Gen AI solutions really come in. Today, there are more than 730 legal Gen AI solutions in the market.
Wow, and that's wonderful context. I really appreciate you nutting down that for our audience today. I want to move to Singapore because Singapore is widely recognised as a leader in this space. So what specific AI and generative AI initiatives has Singapore implemented in its courts? And I guess what makes Singapore's approach distinctive in your view?
Yes, so I absolutely agree with you that there's a lot that has happened in Singapore with regards to AI and generative AI. So I was on a panel recently with the Chief Transformation and Innovation Officer from the Supreme Court on this topic. They have implemented Harvey to help self-represented individuals to handle their own cases for small claims tribunal. So for context, the Supreme Court has seen small claims tribunal increasing to 11,000 cases per annum. So this really helps with access to justice. In particular, individuals filing or responding to claims in small claims tribunals where consumers can seek claims of up to $20,000 or $30,000 where mutually agreed, can use the tool to improve their understanding of the cases and help them prepare their court documents. On top of that, the Singapore judiciary has also published a guide on the use of generative AI tools by court users, where the courts have also noted the ultimate responsibility in the use of generative AI really lies on the users themselves. The guide really highlights the need to ensure accuracy of verifying the AI outputs by the lawyers, as well as protecting intellectual property rights, confidentiality, and sensitive information. There's also been a lot of deliberation that has taken place from considering whether to allow or disallow the use of generative AI or to whitelist or blacklist certain products, all the way through to whether there's a need for users to declare the use of generative AI or declare the type of models being used. Ultimately, they have decided it was too prohibitive. Therefore, the guide was launched to help lawyers understand that they are ultimately responsible for the use of generative AI and the importance of verifying the outputs.
So, Eric, let's move to China. As a technology-forward jurisdiction, what approaches to AI in courts have they implemented?
Very good question. So the Chinese courts are extremely proactive when it comes to the use of AI. And just to put things into perspective, ChatGPT was made publicly available on 30th November 2022. And in under 2 weeks, on the 8th of December 2022, the opinions of the Supreme People's Court on regulating and strengthening the application of artificial intelligence in the judicial fields was published. And in its opinion, the Supreme Court set a goal to establish an artificial intelligence application system by 2025 to support the judiciary in its legal services. And subsequently in 2024, the Supreme Court announced an artificial intelligence platform that could act as a legal AI assistant for judges, with features including legal information classification, as well as case outline extraction. Another point to note is that the title of that opinion piece was phrased as strengthening the application of artificial intelligence. It really highlights their positive view on the prospect of having generative AI being used in assisting the judiciary.
So let's span out even further. Eric, take me on the journey. So we're going to look at some other jurisdictions that your research encompassed, and it included a long list. So listeners, bear with me. It included Vietnam, Thailand, the Philippines, South Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia, Taiwan, Japan, Hong Kong, and New Zealand, and of course Australia, which we're going to get to soon. But looking at APAC, did you identify any challenges or opportunities specific in those regions?
Absolutely. I think firstly, we see, as we explored earlier, majority of the jurisdictions are actively looking at ways to implement AI solutions. They're also at different phases of their journey as well. So you have jurisdictions like the Philippines and Thailand that have announced intentions and plans to develop AI for research as well as drafting to help the courts. Then you have jurisdictions like Taiwan, South Korea, Vietnam, and of course Victoria in Australia that are piloting generative AI solutions for drafting, precedent search, case recommender, and case chronology builder as well. Finally, you have jurisdictions like Malaysia, Indonesia, and of course, we covered before, Singapore and China that have announced the use of AI and generative AI solutions. So in Malaysia, we have seen the introduction of AI solution that helps with sentencing. We've also seen Indonesia announcing an AI solution that helps with identifying similar cases. And of course, we've covered before with Singapore implementing a solution like Harvey to help with small claims tribunal, and the Chinese Supreme Court launching an AI solution to help the judges with court proceedings.
So you've outlined there lots of opportunities, but what about the challenges that you identified in the APAC region?
Very good question. I think on the challenges front, we really see two. The first is ensuring that professional responsibilities are upheld and compliance with court guidelines. So if I take a step back, court guidelines are generally non-enforceable. Even if it's enforceable with prescriptive rules that are in place, it begs the question, how would the courts actually regulate and enforce them? Because they would actually add more workflows and processes, which the courts may not have time to do. And ultimately, education and awareness are really important in the use of AI. Secondly, we also see the authenticity of evidence being challenged because of generative AI. This is because generated evidence become much more realistic with the use of generative AI. It really reduces the barrier of entry, given that there are many publicly available tools. You now don't need to be an expert in Photoshop to doctor an evidence. It also reduces the time required to generate evidence as well.
So when you look across those opportunities and challenges across the region, any patterns or common themes emerge?
Absolutely. So what we're seeing is that the courts are generally taking a more measured approach towards AI and generative AI adoption, since the court have a duty to maintain public trust and confidence in the legal system. So we are seeing the use of generative AI in judicial process that are being tested, whether it's in research and search, drafting, summarizing, decision support, case allocation, transcription, and court operations. We also see two consistent types of judicial guidance on the use of generative AI. So for example, we're seeing principle-based approach that points to the importance of ethics, confidentiality, privacy, fairness, and security that leaves room for evolution as the technology changes and evolve. We also see a much more prescriptive approach that draws a line on acceptable use, input restrictions, and mandatory verification. Both approaches really converge on three things. The first is the importance of human in the loop. The second is not delegating judicial functions to AI. And the third is being cautious about AI outputs.
So what about Australia? Let's move. Most of our audience may be in Australia. So what does what's happening across Southeast Asia compare with Australia's approach to AI in courts? And are there any insights from your research that you think could translate into the Australian legal system?
Very good question, Karen. I think two things come to mind. The first is a centralized versus decentralized approach towards generative AI adoption and pilots by the courts. The benefits of a decentralized approach, of course, is greater exploration, but at the same time, there might be risk of competition, whereas a centralized approach really ensures consistency in the rollout as well. The second thing that comes to mind is the differences in skill across the different jurisdictions. If I take a step back and look at a jurisdiction like Singapore, there are about 6,000 lawyers. So the skill in comparison to Australia, where we have close to 100,000 lawyers today, is of course a lot smaller, and therefore they can be a lot more nimble in their approach as well.
So, Eric, earlier in this session, you talked a little bit about the access to justice, and you used that incredible example of Harvey being used in the Small Claims Tribunal in Singapore. But what about the broader context of how you think AI can improve access to justice more broadly than just in court use?
Very good question, Karen. I think one of the things that we're currently exploring in Singapore is how we could use generative AI and AI agents to assist with access to justice, in particular for Pro Bono Singapore. So an example is they get a few hundred email queries a week, which they have to process. What we are currently exploring is the use of AI solutions that can automatically read and classify each of the emails into separate categories and then draft an email response based on the query before notifying the team so that they can review the responses that have been drafted before editing, finalizing, and sending to the applicants. And once you've done that, you can also save that information into a centralized database. This will essentially help reduce the turnaround time of queries that are coming through via email, whether it's a status check on a file, all the way through to new information requests and call for assistance.
That's incredible. And I can already feel the sense of relief washing over some of our listeners that may be sitting within CLCs and our pro bono sector here in Australia. Having those types of solutions here would be absolutely incredible. So, Eric, for our listeners who want to stay informed, where can they find reliable information and resources about AI adoption?
I really like what LIV is doing with the AI Hub. I think it's a great source of information as well as case studies of what is being implemented in the legal industry. On top of that, there are also a lot of really good AI and more specifically legal industry events that you can attend as well, whether it is the Legal Tech and Innovation Festivals all the way through to any of the events organized by the Australian Legal Technology Association as well.
And I think that education and connectivity and understanding is such an important thing. So before we wrap up, Eric, do you have any tips for listeners, or maybe one thing people can do today is to start embracing AI in a safe way in the legal profession?
Absolutely. Having spent the last 3 years working with lawyers across the region on the journey of generative AI adoption, there are a few tips and lessons that come to mind. The first is you can't generative AI your way out of a problem. And the recognition that AI is just a tool to assist and transform, not to replace. And it's not a cure-all solution as well. The second thing is it's really important to break down large, complex problems into smaller bite size when you're using an AI solution. So making it more manageable so that when you are reviewing the outputs, it's in chunks. The third thing that comes to mind is the importance of prompt engineering. A well-crafted and structured prompt can help you generate a much more useful output, whether it is drafting a clause to summarizing information from multiple contracts. It is so much more helpful when you are able to craft a well-structured prompt. The fourth thing that comes to mind, and this is one of the most important things that I've seen, is the crucial role of knowledge specialists. In this case, it's the lawyers. I think a lot of what we read in mainstream media is how AI is going to replace lawyers. Our view is that AI is going to augment lawyers because you still need the experts to help you understand what is it that you're looking for when you are summarizing or analyzing a contract, as well as what is the output that you're looking for as well when working with a AI-generated output. The last and final thing, which is the fifth point, is the importance of human in the loop. In this case, it's the lawyers reviewing the output before submitting either to the clients or the courts.
Thank you, Eric. I could actually talk to you all day on this topic, but unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. So thank you so much, Eric, for joining us today on this show.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen. It's such a pleasure.
And thank you to everyone listening to Cross Examined. You'll find links to resources, Eric's research and information on AI developments in Asia Pacific courts in the show notes. If you found this episode useful, please share it with colleagues and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Until next time, thanks for listening to Cross Examined.